Greetings all, it's DavionFuxa. Currently right now it is about a week out from the federal elections here in Canada, and I figured I'd jump into the vote compass or political compass basically to see where I basically fall and stuff like that. But I noticed that there's basically a vote compass here on CBC News, and I was figuring why not see where we basically fall on the line with these guys. Anyhow, I'm gonna get started with these guys, but they require my postal code and stuff like that, so I'll basically just hold off on showing that to you guys, and just be right back. Alright, so let's start this up again. So, apparently we got propositions 130 here. Alright, so we got policy and parties profile results. Well, we'll see how far this goes. Basically, we're 5% in apparently, so Quebec should become an independent state. Alright, so I know that a lot of these questions are probably very Canada related, so bear with me if they're all whatever to you. It's Greek basically to whatever to whatever you're thinking, but whatever. The first is basically about Quebec. Should Quebec become an independent state? I'll be honest, I really don't care at this point if Quebec becomes an independent state or not, but I sort of disagree as far as the sake that it'd probably be better if it stayed in for now. So somewhat disagree. The federal cabinet should be evenly split between women and men. Strongly disagree. I'll note that I don't have any problem with women running in cabinet, but let's put it this way: there isn't an equal representation of men and women in society. So why there should be an equal representation in cabinet is beyond me. So doesn't make sense to me. How much should we be done to accommodate religious minorities in Canada? About the same as now. We were pretty accommodating to religious minorities, to be honest. Actually, somewhat less would probably be more in line with what I'm thinking. We accommodate, some minorities a little bit too much. How much financial assistance should the federal government provide to first-time home buyers? I'll note that basically, people trying to buy a new home have a lot of difficulty doing so maybe somewhat more. How much help should the oil and gas industry get from the Canadian government? So this is a fairly controversial, question right here. Basically, right now, of course, there's climate change going on, and oil and gas are, not exactly good for the environment. Canada's basically, recently, bought a pipeline and haven't even started building it yet. But I basically take oil from Alberta out to like the west coast, where it's on BC's coastline, and well, right now they're basically getting like some help. Basically, I'd probably say they're about the same as now. They don't need a whole lot of help, but probably not less. Single-use plastic should be banned immediately. Straws, grocery bags. As much as I dislike, them being banned, I have to somewhat agree with it because at this point, Canada doesn't really have like a recycling system for plastic, so I somewhat agree with it. The federal budget deficit should be reduced, even if it leads to fewer public services. That's a good question. There's a lot of services in Canada that we do like, but I'll have to say, I'm sort of neutral on that. Canada government should stand up to countries that commit human rights abuses, even if it puts Canada's economic interests at risk. I have to somewhat agree with this. There's been too many abuses in the world that, Saudi Arabia, for example, that we basically, sort of like, we're selling weapons, for example. The federal government should impose a carbon tax on provinces without a tax on their own. So here's the big question here. Is the environment, a federal jurisdiction or a provincial one? I have to say it's probably very much, federal, so I strongly agree with this. But no, I'm not really sure about the carbon tax. I somewhat agree with this. Handguns should be banned in Canada. I somewhat agree with that. Handguns basically like, a lot of like, cases can be made for like, rifles and shotguns and stuff like that for like their uses and like, being like used in like, killing animals and stuff like that. But handguns are basically used for killing people for the most part. So I somewhat agree that, handguns should probably be banned in Canada. Canada's human rights should require that trans persons be referred to by their preferred gender pronoun. No, I don't think that is generally right. People are allowed to refer to whatever they want to for other people, in my opinion. It'd be nice if it did, but it's not like we have to be like legislating niceness to people. People who use illicit drugs should have access to supervised injection sites. Well, that is a way to basically try and get rid of like illicit drugs. Basically, give them supervised injection sites and sort of curb them from the stuff. So I somewhat agree with this. How easy should it be to qualify for employment insurance? To be honest, much easier than it is now. How much should the government spend on its military? Much more. I'll be honest, we don't spend enough on our military. I think the U.S. has basically stated that everyone should have like a 2% like GDP ratio for military spending. I think only France, basically beyond the United States, does that. So we probably should start to pick up the pace a little bit in that. How much should wealthier people pay in taxes? I'm not really sure wealthier people have to pay more. They should pay a little bit, somewhat more, but not a whole lot more, I don't think. How much should the government do to make amends for past treatments to indigenous people in Canada? About the same as now is basically what I'm going to say about this. We do actually, apologize to them and stuff like that. There should be some government regulation basically done to try and help out their situation, but we don't have to make amends to them. I don't think at this point for a treatment. That's basically done with. The Canadian government should cover the cost of common prescription drugs. I somewhat agree with this because prescription drugs are something that can get out of control. How accessible should abortion services be across Canada? I'm going to say somewhat more here because there's some provinces like New Brunswick that basically have problems with abortion, so access should probably be improved in some of those places. Now, note that basically my headset might conk out because I don't have any sound going here, but whatever. Migrants entering Canada from the United States through regular border crossings should not be allowed to claim asylum. I have to say I somewhat agree with this. Respect their borders, please, for the most part. Canada should end its ties to the monarchy. That's something that, I really don't care one way or another, so that's neutral. How much money should the federal government redistribute from provinces that have more to those that have less? So basically, in Canada, we have like a distribution system where poor provinces get money from like richer provinces. So Alberta basically gives money to like poor provinces, like say Nova Scotia, where I live. In some ways, I think about the same as now. We don't really want to encourage like poor provinces to be poor. For example, they should try and do better. So it's good enough for what it is. How many immigrants should Canada admit? Now, this might be controversial to say, but I'm going to say somewhat fewer. I don't know if this means refugees, but for immigrants overall, I don't think we need as many like immigrants as we have right now. We could use more refugees if like there's around refugees and stuff like that. But immigrants, we did enough for like the past little while, so somewhat fewer. How much should Canada do to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions? We should do somewhat more than what we're currently doing right now. Basically, right now with Trudeau, it hasn't been all that great, and I think I sort of blame it on the Liberal Party because they basically didn't like fulfill their commitments. How much tax should large corporations pay? Much more. And I'll note by large corporations that would be like also web-based ones like Google and Yahoo and stuff like that because they don't actually pay anything. So much more. The government should guarantee a minimum income for all Canadians, regardless of whether or not they have a job. I somewhat agree with that. Somewhat. But at the same time, I note that as like people like get jobs, that means that companies are gonna be like more inclined to basically go to automation. So it's like a not really a win-win situation. So I'm sort of neutral on it. Quebec should be formally recognized as a nation in the Constitution. I actually somewhat disagree with this. Basically, if you're in Canada, I don't think you really are a nation. You're basically part of Canada, which is, a nation. The government should fund child care centers instead of giving money directly to parents. I somewhat agree with this. Some programs, but funded by the government can be a good thing, and this is one I think that could be good. The Canadian government should recognize systematic violence against Indigenous women and girls as a form of genocide. I'll note that there's basically, what this is referring to. In Canada, basically, Indigenous women, there's been a lot of like, disappearances of like women and like, rapes and stuff like that of like, people basically who are like of Aboriginal descent. I don't think it's genocide what's basically happened to them, but, something's basically happened. It's not good. Somewhat disagree with this. How much influence should unions have? About the same as now. Basically, unions like they're actually diminishing like how much influence they have right now. So I think it's fine, as it is. So about the same as now. How much of a role should private sector have in healthcare? I'm actually going to say about the same as now. In many ways, I think that like healthcare is one of those places that it shouldn't be like public healthcare for the most part. Entirely, but for the most part, like, it is good to, like, healthcare in like Canada is like, it's great, right? Basically, I can get healthcare, regardless of where I have money or not. This is like, opposed to say the United States, where if you don't have the money, you don't get your operations and stuff. So about the same as now. All right, so this is now we're moving on to the parties, I guess. So I'll note that Andrew Scheer is basically the leader of the Conservative Party. He's basically like our right of center party. We actually have like several parties now in Canada. So I'll try and give a breakdown of what they basically are all about. Basically, this guy is about like more conservative policies, as you can probably guess from his party name. He basically like it's like meh on the environment, meh on like LGBT and like social rights and stuff like that. Pro gun laws and stuff like that. I'm not really sure if I find him like untrustworthy or anything, but there is some stuff that he could have like told us. Like is like he basically this guy's like a dual citizenship person who basically has citizenship in Canada, but he's also a citizen of like United States of America. That's something he probably could disclose, and there's not really a whole lot to fault him on, but there's little stuff like that. So he could have been like a little more trustworthy. So I'd probably give him this guy a 7. How trustworthy do you find Elizabeth May? May is basically our Green leader. Green Party is basically like an environmentalist, so social end party. It's a lot more right leaning than like a lot of like the Green parties in like the world, but for the most part, I can't really say I find her trustworthy. I actually find her less trustworthy than Sheer, because she basically like says one thing out of her mouth and like sort of like fumbles and other stuff. So a 6 for her, I think. So Justin Trudeau, I'm sure, like from all the leaders that you're probably going to see here, this is one guy you probably know. Justin Trudeau is basically our current prime minister. He's basically the leader of the Liberal Party, and the Liberal Party is, of course, our left of center party. This guy here, I can't really say I trust him too much. Basically, there's a lot of stuff that he didn't fulfill with his promises. He sort of like talks like in like talking points for the most part, and free. All right, how trustworthy do you find Jagmeet Singh? For the most part, I actually find Jagmeet Singh pretty trustworthy. I just don't like his policies. But I do like, how trustworthy he is, so I'll give him an 8. I'll note, by the way, that Jagmeet Singh is basically our leader of the NDP party, the New Democratic Party. They're basically our left party, so, we basically have conservatives who are basically center-right. We have the liberals who are basically center-left. And then we have the NDP here, and these guys basically are, like, left. In many ways, they basically like sort of bounce around the spectrum a little bit, between like the center and like the far left. But whatever. Basically, their leader is fine, I think, for the most part. So I'll give him an 8. Ah, yes, Maxime Bernier. So I'll note that we recently had a new addition of a party. This is Maxime Bernier. He's basically the leader of the People's Party of Canada, and it is basically a right-wing party. So we actually now have like a right-wing party, a center-right party, a center-left party, a left-wing party, and then the Greens. Maxime Bernier, I actually find that he's like, he says a lot of stuff on Twitter, which like, is very reminiscent of Trump, and a lot of it's bombastic. I don't think, but in many ways, he's like, untrustworthy though. He's actually pretty, in like the debates, he was actually like, pretty on point. His tweets could be better, but I actually find this guy to probably be as trustworthy as Singh, which is saying something. So 8 for him. All right, so now we're going to parties. Regardless of the party you intend to vote for in the election, in general, how likely are you to support the Green Party of Canada? Now, I'll note, by the way, that I actually have a lot of support for like the fringe parties in Canada, because I actually want to see like more of a spectrum for like to vote for. I'm not really like akin to all the Green Party's like policies and stuff like that, but for the most part, I actually do think that I am somewhat supportive of the Green Party, so let's give him a 7. I'll note that in regard to Liberals, though, the Liberals are currently the party that are currently in power in Canada, and I can't really say I think much of like the Liberal Party. They're basically like they've done a lot of stuff basically in the past, like this like current like term of like of serving basically the candidates, as well as like their past prime ministers and like candidates. And like parliamentarians. For the most part, I can't really say trust the Liberal Party or support them, so I'm going to give these guys a 4. The NDP, regardless of how blah blah blah, the NDP, I don't trust the NDP, by the way. It's funny because I actually trust their leader, but I don't trust their party. The thing about the NDP is that they're sort of like they do one thing and then do like another thing. And they haven't really established like what their party is all about, so they're basically sort of like up in the air in many ways. I just give them a 5, I think, at this point. The Conservative Party, in many ways, the Conservative Party is very much like the Liberal Party, and I really don't trust them. But I think it's very like leader focused for these guys, for like what basically like drives like how they basically like operate. When they basically had like Stephen Harper, or like past prime minister in office. They're very like hard right for the most part in a lot of aspects, but before, and my headset cut out again. But before basically I had Harper, the Conservatives were actually very like more modest, I guess, in how they basically approach things. So with the Conservatives, it's it's a party that I somewhat trust what they're going to do, depending on what the leader is, basically. So I give them a 6, I guess. All right, the People's Party of Canada. These guys are a new party, so where they basically stand right now is sort of up in the air. Their policies are basically very right wing, but I assume that they'll probably change as time goes on. So right now, I probably give these guys a 4 despite them being a fringe party, just because they're a little bit up in the air. All right, now we're going back to leaders. So how confident do you find Andrew Scheer? So I actually think that Andrew Scheer is probably fairly competent with what if he's being in the job. So I probably give him a 7. Davion Singh, despite the fact that I do trust him, I don't necessarily find him competent, so I'll probably give him a 6. Basically, I'll note that I'm basically sort of basing this on their priorities for the most part in their personalities. Singh basically strikes me as being probably a good guy and all that, but probably not the best candidate for being a prime minister. So maybe give this guy a 5. How competent do you find Elizabeth May? I actually don't find May very competent at all. I'd probably actually give her a 2. Basically, she's the environmentalist of of Canada, and that's great and all, but there's a lot more to Canada than this the environment. So I'd probably give her a 3. How competent do you find Maxime Bernier? Well, I think he's more competent than Trump, so that's saying something. I think that actually in office he actually would be fairly competent, a little bit more than May, but that's not saying much. So I'd probably give him a 4. And you know what? I don't consider him competent at all, Justin Trudeau. Basically, Justin Trudeau, he basically, I voted for him actually in the last election, but he's not really been the best prime minister. He's just sort of a figurehead. I think that Liberal Party could do better, and I think it's time to get him out. In your opinion, how likely is it that people in your riding will elect the Green Party? I'll note by the way that I live in Halifax, so we're actually fairly left-leaning, and we actually have a Green Party who might actually win. So I'd probably give this a 6. The Liberal Party though is currently one with the current incumbent. I think some people will be disenfranchised with Trudeau, but not to the extent that they'll probably give up their party seat for him. I'd probably give the Liberal Party a 7. Or no, let's give it an 8. They're probably more likely basically to elect him, I think, than the NDP. No, I don't consider these the Conservative Party likely to be elected in Halifax. So 0 again. Now I'm gonna give the NDP a 7 here because basically they're basically as I said, we're left leaning here in Halifax. So the NDP are actually held the seat before the current Liberal incumbent basically had it, and it's very likely they could pick it back up again. I don't think their candidate's too bad for it, so we'll give him a 7. All right, so the following questions are optional and not affect the results. They are used to position you within the general population. So, if the Canadian federal election were to take place today, which party would you vote for? So basically, as you can see, there's a ton of people you can basically vote for. It's the People's Party of Canada, the Liberal Party of Canada, the Conservative Party of Canada, the New Democratic Party, Bloc Québécois, Green Party, other party, independent candidate. I have not decided. I will vote. I will spend my ballot. I will not eligible to vote. So I'll note by the way that we actually don't have a People's Party of Canada in Halifax because Maxime Bernier actually booted him from his lineup of candidates. He actually did something that he didn't like, so he got booted basically from the party. So we don't actually have a People's Party of Canada. Now here's the question: do I vote Liberal, New Democratic, or Green? I'll note by the way that I don't really think much for Liberals, and I probably would vote against them. So the question is, do I vote for NDP or do I vote for Green? And I'll note by the way, I actually live in here in Canada, we live in a first past the post system, so you only get one vote. So the question is, who do I think is more likely to boot him out? I'll note by the way that, as I said, I am sort of tempted to vote for Green though, just because it's a fringe party, and they actually do have a possible chance of being elected in Halifax. So I might vote them, just for that reason. So Green Party of Canada. How did you vote in the last Canadian federal election? I actually voted Liberal, so I'll put Liberal. What is your sex? I'm male. And which year were you born? I was actually born in '86. Highest level of education completed. I'm actually just a bachelor degree. What occupation area do you work in? And blah blah. I actually work in logistics. So do you have logistics here? That's close enough. What's my religion? I'm atheist. What was the first language that you learned? English. Where were you born? Canada. What are the ethnic or cultural origins of your ancestors? I know that I'm basically got a Scottish name and I'm fairly Scottish, so we'll say Scottish. And apparently I can select more if they apply, but I'll say Scottish for now. Count yourself, how many people live in your household? Just 3. How many of them are under 15 years of old? Actually, you know what? I should say 4 at this point. And one of them is below the age of 15. Which should have fallen best describes your combined household income before taxes. I'm not actually sure what my range of money is. That's something I never really established I know what I basically make in a year, but never really asked my anyone else in the household. So whatever, I'll say nothing. In politics, people sometimes talk of left and right. Where would you place yourself on a scale? I place myself dead center. Because I have some left-leaning tendencies, but I'm also somewhat right-leaning as well. Generally speaking, how do you interest you in politics? I'm somewhat interested. I want to make sure I at least vote at least. What issue is most important to you in this election? It's very cliche, but climate change. Though I have to say it's not really oriented to our country, basically in the world, basically. So yeah, climate change. Are you interested in participating in future VoteCompass studies? I actually am, so sure. And put down that email, because why not? Alright, so loading my results. So, the graphs below shows your alignment with the parties. Each uses a different measure, and results may differ from graph to graph. See FAQ for details. So, apparently I agree most of the Liberal Party of Canada. That's not really surprising, to be honest, because they're actually fairly center. You can actually see right here where they stand. So the Liberal Party of Canada is basically more or less dead center of economic policies. That's where I am apparently, right down here. I find it funny that apparently economically I'm very much in line with the Liberal Party, but I'm more socially closer to the Conservative Party. So yeah. Dead center, as you can see. I'm very, very close to it. Apparently, I agree a little bit with the Green Party of Canada, even though they're all the way up here. I don't know how that works, but okay. The NFP are basically right over there. That's to be expected. They're up in the clouds, these guys. The Conservative Party of Canada, they're over here. The People's Party of Canada, all the way over here. So, there's more to see. Try to explore the political landscape in a 3D to get a better sense of where you fit. Alright, we might, see that. Let's do that. So, here's how it looks in a 3D environment, I guess. We basically have federalism. So basically decentralized or centralized. Progressive for social. Economic over here. So, there's all little bubbles on a 3D graph. And yeah, I'm basically fairly close to the center for the most part, compared to the parties, so that's the thing. Alright, let's see here. So compare to the party on the issues, topic, law, and order. So apparently you can compare the issues on these guys. So handguns should be banned in Canada. So basically you can see these guys somewhat agree. I'm basically right here. These guys disagree. Green Party basically strongly agrees. If I go with other stuff say childcare, these guys strongly agree. These guys somewhat disagree. I somewhat agree. Green Party agrees. So apparently I'm nowhere in childcare for their party. So whatever. Diversity and inclusion. That's funny. I'm nowhere near the other parties. Well, that's a big expect, I guess. Energy. About the same as now. Liberal Party. Environment. Liberal Party. So yeah, this is why I basically have the Liberal Party as my highest choice, because I'm actually quite well with them. Neutral apparently. No one else is neutral. Foreign policy. Apparently, someone agree or strongly agree with a lot of these. So I somewhat agree with, like, the People's Party of Canada, Liberal Party of Canada, the Conservative Party of Canada. Government institutions. Apparently I'm neutral, and everyone else is strongly agree. Well, that's good to know. Healthcare. Apparently with healthcare, I'm about the same as the Conservative Party of Canada with, like, private sector healthcare. And I somewhat agree with, like, the People's Party of Canada with illicit drugs, apparently. Interesting. The Canadian government should cover the cost of common prescription drugs. Some agree, no one else is. And abortion, somewhat more. Everyone else is here much more, less. Housing. Apparently I'm with the Liberal Party of Canada, big surprise. Never matched with them, because why not? Immigration, somewhat fewer. No one else is like that, except for, like, the PPC over here. It's very interesting in that, like, only, like, the People's Party of Canada is like, less immigrants. Everyone's like more, or same. How much should be done to combat religious minorities? I say somewhat less. Everyone says about the same as now. Oh well, wasn't really a big, topic this time around. Marx entering, blah blah. Apparently, Liberal Party says someone agree, and that's interesting. I didn't think they would, but okay. They're like strongly disagree. They're like strongly agree. It's interesting to see how, like, your results basically fall in this type of thing. How easy should it be to qualify for employment insurance? I said, like, much easier. So apparently I'm in line with the Green Party and NDP on that. Government should guarantee minimum income. I said neutral. Someone said less. Someone said more. Indigenous. Systematic violence, blah blah. I said someone disagree. These guys here strongly agree or strongly agree apparently. So there's no middle ground of these parties for this issue. How much should the government do to make amends to people? I said about the same as now. So apparently I'm very conservative on this. These guys are much more. Labor relations. How much influence should unions have? I said they're about the same as now. These guys say somewhat less. These guys say much more. Law and order, we've already went through it, but whatever. Quebec. Quebec should be formally recognized as a nation. Apparently I somewhat agree. Interestingly enough, apparently the Liberals actually disagree with this, so that's interesting. The Green Party is actually neutral. Conservative Party somewhat agrees, apparently. And the NDP strongly agree. Quebec should become an independent state. Apparently, the People's Party of Canada, NDP, and Liberals disagree. The Conservative Party basically disagrees, somewhat disagrees, and then the Green Party is neutral. I find it interesting that the Green Party is, like, neutral on all these issues, because, that's the thing with the Green Party. They don't really have a stance on it. And taxation. Should we tax large corporations more? I said, much more. Apparently that's in line with the Green Party. These guys are like, somewhat less, somewhat more, much less. Should welfare people pay more in taxes? Apparently the Liberal Party says, about the same as now. Green Party says so much more. NDP says more. CPC says less. PPC says even less than that. By the way, here's how I rate the leaders apparently. So, 7, 6, 6, 4, 3, or 2. So even though it says I'm, very much likely to agree with the party, apparently I don't like Justin Trudeau, I guess. Though I already knew I don't like him. I wonder how much this is affected by this down here. I find it funny that apparently I rate Andrew Scheer probably higher than more of them though. Even Max Hayes rated more. Shows like, I'm basically starting to lean, I'm getting older, right? So I'm starting to lean more conservative. That sort of happens. But yeah. Modify this graph based on the issues you care about the most. Weigh your results. Alright, let's see what this does. So childcare. This somewhat matters to me, so I'm just going to say 5. Really question. Alright, so that's basically really question here. Really questions, basically give me a breakdown what the really questions here are. Diversity inclusion. I actually don't really care about this too much, so 3. Energy. That's basically like oil and gas. That's actually a little bit more, I care somewhat about it, so 7. Environment, 10. Fiscal policy, that's basically about, like, redistribution and wealth and, like, public services and stuff like that. Somewhat a 6 for that. Foreign policy, that's basically, like, how we stand up to our countries and, military and stuff like that. Actually matters to me a lot, so 9. Government institutions and its ties to monarchy, I don't really care about all, to be honest. Healthcare, healthcare stuff. To be honest, I actually don't really care about healthcare. I mean, it's still obviously like good stuff to know about, but personally, I don't care about it myself. Housing is pretty much the same way as well. Immigration, I still don't agree with immigration because it's sort of an important issue. So 7. Income assistance. This is basically like minimum income and other stuff. Personally, don't care about it. So 3. Indigenous. These guys basically systematic violence and amends for stuff. I really don't care about indigenous issues because I don't really interact with the Aboriginal population, and for the most part, I assume that people will eventually get right at some point down the road until it becomes a bigger issue. Maybe in 5 years I'll care about more for still a lot of abuses, but I'll give it 2. Labor relations. How much influence should unions have? 0. I'm actually part of a union, by the way. I'm actually part of the Canadian Union of Postal Workers, but I really don't care about labor relations because, even though I am in a union, I don't really see it as a big deal. Law and order. Handguns should be banned in Canada. This is actually something else that I don't really care about as much as well. Quebec. Quebec I actually don't care, care a little bit about somewhat, but, not too much. Taxation. How much tax should large corporations pay? How much should wealthier people pay? About 5 for that. So let's see what this does if I recalculate it. So before I basically had Liberal Green being pretty high. If I recalculate this, apparently I'm even higher for the Liberal Party now. I'm still pretty high for the Green Party though. NDP are right there. These guys are, less now. These are over here. And if I view this in a 2D graph, this is a little bit hard to see, I guess. So I haven't really adjusted all that much, I guess. It doesn't adjust the graph or anything, I guess. So that's that. But anyways, this was the CBC, VoteCompass. According to this, I should probably be voting Liberal, but, voting Green is probably a good choice if I don't really care about the Liberal Party. So there's that. I wonder what you guys basically are at with, voting if you're in Canada. But for now, hope you guys enjoyed this quick little video, or I guess not too quick, but whatever. And take care.